Hello, this is Skylit Lake reading Super Science by thatchickendude. Chapter 59 Landfall, Villains, and Eggs. Hello? Egon answered his phone one day at the facility, only to get the gargled and rapid, incoherent yelling of Hunkayo. Whoa there. Hunkayo, calm down and just tell me what's happening. Egon had to shout back at him. The man took a deep breath on the other end to calm himself, and then replied, "Oh boy, where do I start? Okay, so it all began when we finally made landfall on Pacifica. Near the shoreline of Pacifica, the cargo ship that was carrying the nip creatures was parked and ready to unload the many cages packaged aboard. However, they were told to wait on that since they got a call from their employer, Egon, telling them to wait until Hunkayo had arrived after drifting off the Japanese shore. And so they waited after making landfall on the little island. For about 3 hours. "Captain," one of the crewmen asked the captain inside the control deck with the man, who was looking through a pair of binoculars. "Yes, Private," he asked, nose deep in paperwork. The crewman asked, "Is it just me, or is there a building-sized spider floating towards us?" The captain put the paper down and moved off his chair to look through the private binoculars. There, he looked around the open ocean scenery and quickly spotted what the man was looking at. And so it was that he spotted the world's largest and ugliest looking spider floating towards them on a raft made of webs. Soon, the captain and the whole crew were on the port side of the boat, looking over in a mix of shock and horror as the creature began to paddle itself at a fast speed towards them with its many legs. Though panic could settle in before they saw something standing upon the creature, they called out, "Ahoy there!" "Dear God," the captain said to himself. Soon the spider came close to the ship, and on its head was a scientist with 5 black tube-like structures coming out of his head. The captain knew this was the man they were supposed to be waiting for, but they didn't expect him to float into shore like this. Hunkayo did a salute and asked permission to come aboard. Permission granted. The captain sat back in a daze as the scientist jumped onto the ship's deck. "How?" the captain tried to ask. Water now!" Hunkayo demanded with his hands out as one of the crewmen handed him a canteen that he snatched and drank dry. After sighing with relief on the drink, he babbled out, "Oh, thank you. You have no idea what I went through. I don't think I could drink more of Ungliot's fluid sacs another day longer." All the people on board looked at one another, and the captain asked, "What?" "Desperate times call for desperate measures. Don't judge me," Hunkayo snapped at the man. The captain looked over the man and saw he had been through quite a bit. He was sunburnt, his clothes stained by sea salt, his eyes sunken from lack of sleep, and his mouth covered in green tinge and scale, no doubt from eating fish. but he had no idea about the green color. So, this is the giant spider we were supposed to transport, but got held up due to its enclosure? The captain asked. Hunker changed his tune and happily told him, "This here is my pride and joy, Ungliot. Isn't she beautiful?" The people on board looked over and saw the giant and disgusting creature as it opened its mouth at them in some form of a smile. This made the people shiver in disgust, and the captain replied, "Yeah, sure. How did you survive?" "Well, I drank from Ungliot's fluid sacs," Hanko began. "We know." They all cut him off in sync. Hunky frowned at them and continued, "And she caught fish for me. Raw fish is a killer on the stomach." With that, he released a wet fart and blushed. "Well, we're glad to see you safe, Doctor," the captain told him as he rubbed the back of his head. Hunko looked over the boat and saw the distance from where the ship was to the shore and asked, "So I guess you guys can't get any closer to shore?" The captain shook his head and informed him, "Not unless we want to get beached. Unloading all the creatures is gonna get a lot more time consuming." Hunko placed a hand to his chin, snapped his fingers, and called out, "Ungliot, build us a dock, please." The giant spider did as she was told and leaped from her raft to the shore. Using her many legs and many large boulders by the shore, she used her black webs to start sticking them together. Within a few minutes, using the boulders as anchor points, she spun a huge dock made entirely from her webs. The dock was sturdy enough to walk on, strong enough to hold the huge cargo vessel, and large enough that Ungliot could walk on it comfortably. Egon proudly displayed his spider's work and inquired, "How's this?" "It should suffice," the captain said in shock and amazement, and the rest of the crew looked out with equal awe. Hankoyo then looked around the ship and asked the men, "By the way, where's Torchwick?" The captain wondered what he meant for a second, and then realized what he was referring to. So he answered while pointing to the sky, "The dragon?" He broke out of his cage and started to fly around the boat as we traveled. "He's up above us right now." Hankoyo used one of his tendrils to shade his face and looked skyward and saw the huge shadow of Torchwick flying above them, looking quite happy at all the space and freedom he had to fly. And so Hankoyo, the cargo ship crew, and Ungliot all aided in unloading the main cages of the different creatures on the ship. Some of them were easier than most, since all they had to do was release them into the open ocean. Others were harder, but thanks to Ungliot, that would be a snap, since she could easily jump from one part of the island to the other, where the creatures would be supplied to their most suited environment. Any animal released on the shore would have to be done so using the 420 piece out splinter, so none of them would get attacked. But before any of that, they first had to unload and take inventory of all animals from the ship to the shore. While they were doing that, one of the crewmen saw what looked like a person beginning to emerge from the thick forest brush closer to the island. The one person turned into 2, then 4, and 10, and more. So he called for the doctor and said, "Hey doctor." Hankayo, who was doing an inventory of the animals, turned his head as the crewman asked, "Did you say this island was uninhabited?" "Of course it is. There's nothing but plant life," Hankayo confirmed. "Then who are they?" the crewman asked as he pointed to the group of people, now in the dozens running towards them. "Maybe they're friendly?" Hankayo optimistically offered as he saw the cargo ship crew begin to panic, only for a fireball to graze his head and hit the metal cage he was standing by. "Never mind. Not friendly. Not friendly," Hankayo screamed as they all started to run back to the ship with the hostile people screaming and chasing them. Long before they could catch up to them, Ungliot jumped in between the massive army of violent people and screamed at them. The people, either crazy or desperate, did not halt their assault and began to attack the giant spider. They thought this wasn't a problem as the huge spider used her main legs and mouth of many teeth and thorax to pierce, crunch, and crush all the people. But even then, they still tried to attack them and climb up the spider. From there, the crewmen and scientists ran back to the ship, where they began to run back and pull back the ramp. Once seemingly safe, the captain breathlessly asked, "Where are they all coming from? There's so many." "We have more significant problems. Anglia is gonna get swarmed," Hankayo yelled at him as they all looked over to see a seemingly never-ending swarm of people climb onto and attack the huge spider that was now begging to lose the battle. Fortunately for them, a secret weapon descended from the sky, and Torchwick soared down with a mighty roar. He breathed a weak flame on Ungliot to remove the people on her, but keeping her unharmed. He then flew by the army of people and breathed out a straight line of flames across the sand. People got knocked away by the sheer pressure of the flames, or was engulfed and incinerated by them. Anyone still left over from that attack, and especially seeing the dragon, ran back into the forest, where Torchwick landed and let out a bellowing roar towards everyone, warning all the leftover people. Seeing the dire situation turn in their favor, relief washed over them, and the captain exclaimed, "Thank God we have that dragon." When the coast was clear, the ramp was lowered again, and the crew made their way back to the island. Although they had more work to do, morbid curiosity took over them as they examined the men's corpses from their attack lying all around the beach. Many of the crew got sick of the sight and either vomited or ran away. However, one person seemed very interested in one of them and kept staring at the corpse intensely. He then called out, "Hey, wait, I know this guy." This got everyone's attention, and they all came around the man as he explained to them, "I saw him on the news a few weeks ago. He was some big-time villain who finally got caught and was given a life sentence." Hankayo took out his Pura pad, which he still had with him, and took a photo of the man's face. After running it through, he did find out that it was a newly incarcerated inmate. Hunko thought to himself for a minute, then began to run around to all the bodies and took pictures of the ones that still had intact faces. After running the faces through the finder system, he found one common thing among them all. So, he announced to all the people present, "Wait a second. All these people are villains with life sentences or death penalties. How'd they get here?" "Villains on Pacifica," Egon yelled over the phone as Hunko finished the story. "Yeah," Hunko explained back. "Why did you wait so long to tell me? You've been there for several days." Egon practically yelled at the man. "That's because something else happened. And there's no reception on Pacifica," Hunko told him. Egon slapped himself on the head in stupidity and said, "Oh right, go on." "After we unloaded the animals and the plants into their selected environments, we took a few days to rest, refuel the ship, and get the coordinates for home. In that time, not only did I take recordings and notes on the creatures assimilating to their new environments, Torchwick did something I didn't expect," he explained vaguely. "What did he do?" Egon prompted further. "That brings me to this question. Torchwick is a guy, right?" Hunko inquired. Egon was silent for a moment before answering. "We never determined that, but we called him a boy simply because it was easier." "Why?" "Because he laid eggs. A lot of them. And all over Pacifica," the man finally told him. "Eggs?" Egon repeated the word in surprise. "Yeah, big ones too. I wanted to take a few samples home with me, but they hatched really, really fast." "What came out?" Egon prompted him. This is when Hunko sounded far more serious as he exclaimed, "Dragons! Lots and lots of dragons! And different ones too! All are designed to survive in several different locations. And if that wasn't enough, they were all born grown." "As in small adults?" Egon questioned. "As in fully grown adults ready to take on the world and mate," Hunko corrected him. "By the gods, I would have never guessed," Egon muttered to himself before sighing and telling him, "Once we have an easier way to travel between Pacifica, we'll start to document them. I'll also be calling Prime Minister about this. I'll get back to you with more information." After hanging up, Egon dials a number to the Prime Minister's office. After a bit of back and forth with her secretary, he puts on a brief hold, where the woman herself picks up and answers cordially, saying, "Professor, what do I owe the—" But Egon cuts her off and firmly asks her, getting increasingly aggravated, "Hey, Prime Minister, how are you? Great? That's great. Hey, speaking of talking, how about talk of the reason there are criminals on my uninhabited and dangerous subcontinent?" The woman was silent for a moment, and then asked out of the blue, "Professor Egon, do you know how many jails there are in Japan?" 62, not counting the juvenile. Why is this relevant?" Egon answers easily and asks back. She inquires again, Do you know how fast the crime rate shot up during the heydays of quirks? This time, it takes Egon a minute to think, then tells her, 89? Exactly, and those numbers aren't going any lower. The woman answers to him, maybe if you worked on restructuring Japan, maybe it would go down. Egon rolls his eyes and gripes. The Prime Minister goes silent for a moment, her irritation able to be felt through the phone lines as she says, ignoring what you said, the taxpayers and the governments of Japan can't continue to keep already overstocked prisons in working order, and due to the law, we can only institute so many death penalties in a year. So this is an alternative. Sending them to an uninhabited island in the middle of the ocean was your alternative? Egon exclaims to her. She said nothing, so Egon continued to chew her out. You do realize this brings up several ethical liabilities into play. You're not Great Britain dumping their prisoners in Australia, and not even bringing up the fact that Pacifica is not yours to do with. Technically speaking, it's not yours either, and don't call it abandonment, call it relocation, she tells him with a sinister calm in her tone. Hankoyo groans loud enough for her to hear, and he shoots back in a deadly serious tone. Do you know what the press, let alone the world, would think if you were throwing inmates onto an island only to be killed by the environment and wildlife? And what if they escape or manage to tame some of the animals? Do you want the world to think about the alien you're trying to hide? The Prime Minister shot back at him, causing the man to nearly drop the phone from shock as he felt his sins crawl on his back. We all have our secrets, Professor. You said so yourself. She told him with a chuckle in her throat. Egon goes from shocked to repressed rage, resisting the urge to hiss as he replies, Don't think I won't act on this. I'm sure you will. Have a good day, she tells him offhandedly, while hanging up on him. Egon carefully places the phone down and tries to calm his rising nerves. He punched the table hard enough to draw blood and knocked over the small stack of papers on his desk. After gaining control of himself, he picked up his other phone and dialed a number. Hunko picked up and answered with a confused, Hello? Tell that spider to start making babies. We've got an island to purge. Egon yells through the line. Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. This is gonna be probably the second last chapter for Super Science because I'm planning not to continue it as per my YouTube poll because I'm kind of falling out and this is roughly as far as I want to go. I did plan to go to chapter 80 initially, and by the way, there's like, let's see how many chapters there are. There's 150 chapters so far, and sadly I won't be continuing this series. I will do chapter 60, and that's a done deal. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you guys later. Bye.